Just wanted to say thank you so much for getting us to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we will pick a winner at the end of this week.
What's up, guys? So today we are installing some American Iron Off-Road ball joint deletes. So these are going into 05s plus Super Duty axle. We opted to go for the uppers and lowers. One unique thing about this style of delete is you can choose to do different offset to adjust your caster and camber. This particular axle we chose the 1.5 1.5 degree bushings, so we're going to throw just a small bit of camber in it, and then the rest caster. So on my Jeep I went with 3 degrees, added 2 degrees camber, 1 degree caster. At the time wasn't really street driving much, so I think I might change mine out to take a little bit of the camber out. But it does help with scrub radius turning, things like that. So another unique feature that wasn't on mine, must be a new design, is they've made this slot right here so you can take the snap rings off of the factory ball joint. Once you press them in the knuckle, snap ring goes on. So I've already disassembled them. Disassemble is fairly simple. Make sure you have a good pair of snap ring pliers, good to go. Make sure you take the uniball out of them, and then get to welding. Prep my knuckle for everything to begin the weld process. So basically what I do is I use a Dremel tool. I've got flat discs, I've got some small point carbide tips. So you really got to kind of get in this little step down right here. There always seems to be a lot of debris and gunk that builds up in this little step. So make sure you get all that cleaned out good, upper and lower. And then, as I mentioned earlier, they made this new provision to where once this bottom cup drops in, you've got a slot for a snap ring, even though this is the weld-in kit, which is nice, kind of locks it in a little bit better. So got everything prepped. We're doing high steer kit at the same time, which is a Jesse Haynes fab. First time installing this particular weld-on high steer. I've installed several. Each one I think has their benefits and drawbacks, just depending on what you're after. We knew right off the bat we were going full hydro on the Jeep we're building, so we went with the Jesse Haynes fab full hydro kit. So we've got it all prepped, knuckle prepped, wiped it down with acetone. So we're getting ready to preheat. This is what I use for preheat. It is like a weed brush burner, I guess what you call it, just a hard freight special. Hook it directly up to the propane tank. Gets a good nice flame, kind of spreads out your heat. So we're getting ready to suit up and preheat it. I like to go around 400 degrees before I start welding. And when it comes to the welding process, I've TIGged them, I've MIGged them before. TIG's gonna take a little bit longer, more prep, needs to be a lot cleaner. MIG goes a little quicker, and to be honest with you, I haven't had issues with either. Like I said, as long as you preheat, weld, skip around, then post heat, and then I've got my blanket, welding blanket ready to go. So I'll then wrap it up and let it slow cool. So we're gonna get suited up and start welding. Alright guys, so we're gonna start doing the weld process. What I normally do though is bolt my high steer on, and once I bolt it on, get it where it needs to be after I've ground it, make sure everything fits good and snug, I go ahead and take it back off. That way I can weld it out wherever it needs to be welded, because this doesn't necessarily need any preheat, it's just mild steel, right? So go ahead and get this good and welded up. Once it's welded up, then I'll go ahead and put it back on. Then we'll begin preheating the knuckle and weld the high steer actually to the knuckle while we weld the ball joint deletes into it. So start welding. Alright guys, so now that we've got our actual high steer welded together, we bolted it back to the knuckle. We're going to start preheating so we can weld it to the knuckle and weld our ball joint deletes in. So as I said before, Harbor Freight Special weed burner, and then I like to get a little infrared temp gun, which helps, you know, control the heat, know how hot it gets, so I can put it down. panels cool in this welding blanket overnight. They're actually up on my welding table. Probably not the best idea to leave them on the concrete floor. Acts as a big heat sink. So I unwrapped these the next day after they've, like I said, slow cooled all night in the welding blanket. I also like to use some anti-seize whenever I'm installing the spherical bearings into the weld-in cups for the last time. Just allows them to go in smoothly and don't have to worry about them galling or anything upon install. Usually just give them just a light tap with a brass punch just to make sure they're seated all the way down into the knuckle before we put that snap ring in. Here's my little helper. Say what's up.
Hello! And guess what, guys? I have a wiggly tooth.
Show 'em. Oh my goodness. Tooth Fairy gonna visit you soon?
Yeah, maybe at Hot Pride.
Maybe. It's your first wiggly tooth, huh? First loose tooth. How much money you think you're gonna get from the Tooth Fairy?
I don't know. $50?
$50.
And how much? And I'm gonna probably get 20 copper coins.
20 copper coins, what does that mean? No, sounds expensive. Alright guys, so this is probably where most people have questions about, and I know it was the one thing that I wasn't too sure on when I did my first set. I think this is probably my fourth set of weld-in deletes I've done. So, thing most people have questions about is trimming this flat right here. I believe maybe Josh will do it for you if you let him know exactly what you want. So basically what I do is I take my aluminum bushing here, turn it over on a piece of paper, trace the circumference of it, mark that on a piece of paper, and then I want to find center of that hole, center of that circle. Okay, and then I can take my protractor, line up center, and then I can mark my 82.5 degrees, which is what I want to do. My instructions show me that for 1.5 degree sets, and I'm wanting 0.25 degrees camber, 1.25 degrees caster, so I want to do 82.5 degrees. So that's what this mark is right here. So that's my 82.5 degree mark. So once I've got that mark, I could then line up my slot to where it's dead center. And then I want to mark 82.5 degrees, which is right here. So once I mark that, then what I do is I take it over to the C, place it in the C, and then I take and measure the center distance. So measure the center distance, and then I will line up this red mark with the center of the C, basically. So once I've lined it up, which is about right there, line it up with the mark on. I just use my protractor since I already have it handy. Like I said, line that mark up with the center of the C to that mark. And then I'll take it and just kind of eyeball a line off of that straight edge on the C. Mark it, and then I know that's where I need to trim. Now, if you'll see, 90 degrees is about right there, so I'm about at 82.5. It's always going to be angled back in. Then I will get to trimming. You want it to be a snug fit, just where you got to tap it in with the hammer a little bit. And you can see this one's already completed, installed. Like I said, this one's already completed and installed, so kind of the same deal. You kind of tell 90 degrees is probably right here somewhere, and I'm angled slightly over here at 82.5. So kind of gives you an idea of what I do. Some people might do it differently. You know, there's a little bit of ichrometer work you got to do here to line everything up, get everything centered. But that's basically in a nutshell how I mark the bushing in order to trim it for whatever degrees of rotation I want. Alright guys, so we just want to show y'all what it looks like upon completion. So here's the upper delete, lower delete, all bolted together. So another thing to remember is the proper torque specs, which is all listed out in the instructions you get with the kit. So make sure you torque them down to spec and they should be good to go. And also, I know some people wonder if they clearance 1550 size U-joints. These are on my Jeep, 35 spline, 1550 chromoly shafts in my Jeep, and they clearance just fine. So highly recommend this kit. We've had some bad failures due to running ball joints in the past when we broke. So definitely a good investment for 05 Plus or any ball joint axle in that case. So we love our deletes.
Like and subscribe. Family